The story begins in 1879, at a time when European settlers were moving to America. Some ended up in large cities, others in small towns, and some chose to live right in the middle of nowhere. One family, for example, settled in the remote prairies of the Dakota Territories, hoping to start over and build a new life. Gerald Slaughter was the head of the family, a tough settler living in the West with his wife, children, and elderly father. His daughter, Mary, was engaged to a guy named Fergus Coffey. They fell in love during the journey west, and now they were preparing to get married. At the beginning of the film, there is a sweet scene where Fergus gives Mary a gift, showing how much he cares. That same night, things turn ugly. Strange noises begin to echo across the plains. The family, frightened by the possibility of native tribes attacking, goes into high alert. Gerald quickly grabs a gun and takes his family to the basement for safety. Outside, gunshots are fired. Panic sets in. The family holds firm, terrified, just praying to make it through the night. But then, something even more inexplicable starts to emerge through the basement entrances. The scene abruptly shifts, interrupted by terrifying screams echoing, filling the air with an intense sense of dread. The next morning, Fergus arrives at the slaughterhouse and finds a nightmare waiting for him. Several family members are dead, and some, including Mary, are missing. Strangely, there are no signs of any typical attack. Some bodies were left behind, but others simply vanished without a trace. Fergus is heartbroken. He tells John Clay, a local who knows the score, about the attack. Clay thinks the attackers could be Native Americans and agrees to investigate. Fergus is determined to find Mary and offers to help in the search. Meanwhile, in another scene, we meet Will Parter, who is having a picnic with his family. He sees a man on horseback and has a bad feeling. But when the man approaches, he discovers it's Fergus, bringing a letter from the governor confirming the attack on the Slaughter family. Will, who has been on the frontier for a long time, agrees to help. His wife, thinking that others may be in danger too, tells him to take their son Dobby with him, so the boy can become stronger and learn to deal with tough times from an early age. Not long after, Will goes to check where the attack happened. He finds the body of a girl with strange bite marks on her neck, some fresh and some infected. Nearby, there is a strange hole dug into the ground. Nobody knows yet, but the real threat is not human. Something much more dangerous is lurking below. Fergus Coffey, John Clay, and Will team up to form a search party to find Mary and any other survivors. The governor's office also sends Captain Henry Victor with his soldiers to help. Henry is a tough and ruthless guy who really hates Native Americans and sees this as an opportunity to vent his anger. The group includes Fergus, Will, John Clay, a freed African-American cook named Callahan, whom people call Walnut, and a young native scout named Calloway, who actually aligns himself with the white settlers. Captain Henry takes full command, although it is clear he is not getting along with the others. Before they depart, they bury the dead and then set off. On the way, Clay tells them that not all native tribes are enemies. He also warns them about a mysterious and dangerous group called the Ute tribe, who may know what is really going on. Clay thinks they might still negotiate, but Henry is more interested in killing than in discussing. As they are moving, Will's horse gets stuck in the mud, and as they pull away, they do not realize that a body is buried exactly where the horse got stuck. The signs are piling up. Someone or something is burying people alive. Later, Henry's men spot a native in the distance. Out of nowhere, Henry shoots the man's horse and captures him. Will tries to ask questions politely, even showing a picture of Mary, but the man does not say a word. When Henry intervenes, he and his men begin torturing the prisoner, trying to make him talk. The others, especially Fergus, Clay, and Will, are uncomfortable with the harshness of the situation. That night, Fergus talks to Callahan. It turns out Callahan was a slave and now works as a cook since no one else will hire him. Fergus tells him he left Dakota for New York but couldn't find work, so he returned to Mary. The conversation is interrupted when Henry catches Callahan trying to give food to the prisoner and threatens him with punishment. Later that night, while everyone is sleeping deeply, strange creatures emerge from the bushes and attack the night guards. The next morning, Fergus wakes up to terrifying news. The guards on watch did not survive. What attacked them was not human. After that savage attack, the group knows they are facing something much more dangerous than any local tribe. The native prisoner they captured finally speaks up. He warns them that these burying creatures covet the flesh of white men and will not give up easily. No one really understands what he is saying. Not yet. Captain Henry, ignoring all warnings, continues to torture the guy, but then John Clay intervenes and puts an end to that. Furious at how cruel he has been, the group begins to break apart. The soldiers go one way, and Fergus, Will, Clay, and Callahan go another. They decide to get away from Henry's men to conduct their own investigation, since it becomes clear that these holes are related to the disappearances. That night, the group camps under the stars, unaware of what they are really facing. Suddenly, Callahan returns. He has abandoned Henry's group and wants to join them. He believes that Henry's methods, if left unchecked, will only result in more unnecessary deaths. The others accept him back, despite the conflicting situation. The next day, they explore further and find a wagon with belongings scattered about, but no people. While resting nearby, Dobby and Callahan start throwing rocks at a tree just to pass the time. When they run out of stones, Dobby looks for more and finds something buried. Locks of golden hair glimmer like rays of sunshine as they begin to dig frantically. To their absolute horror, their tools unearth a young woman buried alive, her eyes painfully squinting as they cross the sunlight. Paralyzed but undeniably alive, she can emit no sound. Only her eyes dart frantically, and her fingers contort in a desperate gesture. The scene is truly chilling. Will, in shock, recognizes the strange marks on her neck, identical to those he had seen before. A horrifying feeling permeates the group as they realize the truth. The attackers do not kill their victims. They inject them with a paralyzing venom, burying them alive to return later and feed on them. The victims, fully aware of their cruel fate, remain conscious but absolutely helpless, living a slow and agonizing death. Fergus, shaken by this terrible revelation, questions his own sanity as he thinks of what might have happened to Mary. With renewed determination, Will orders Dobby to take the paralyzed young woman to the nearest town in hopes she can get medical assistance. They carefully place her in the wagon and send her off for help, anxious for her to survive and, perhaps, bring answers to their anguish. The rest of the group, meanwhile, resumes their search, cautious to avoid confrontations as they pass through a dense forest inhabited by the Ute tribe. However, when a man from the Ute tribe approaches peacefully, Fergus, overcome by fear and paranoia, panics and fires, imagining an imminent attack. John Clay's fury explodes, his worst fear materializes, and the violence ruins any chance of diplomacy. The once calm forest quickly turns into a deafening chaos. The young men retaliate, and amid the turmoil, John Clay is tragically killed. The remaining survivors, Fergus Coffey, Will Parcher, and Callahan Walnut, manage to escape by a hair's breadth, taking refuge behind the body of their dead horse for protection. Exhausted and wounded, they decide to set the forest on fire as a distraction tactic, forcing the Ute young men to retreat. The fire creates a window of opportunity, but now they are completely alone, out of supplies, isolated, and being hunted by a threat they barely understand. Meanwhile, Dobby, tasked with taking the paralyzed young woman, finds himself forced to spend the night in the forest, the weight of tension hanging over him. The silence is deafening, and the feeling that something more terrifying is lurking permeates the darkness of the night. As he sleeps, one of the burying creatures silently emerges from the ground. It injects venom into Dobby's neck, paralyzing him just as it did to the girl. Still awake and aware, Dobby cannot move as the creature begins to dig a shallow grave. Like the others before him, he is buried alive, fully conscious, completely powerless. We return to Fergus and the others, who continue their journey through the night. After a while, they decide to stop to rest and have a little chat while Will keeps watch. Fergus and Callahan soon fall asleep, but they are abruptly awakened by piercing noises. Quickly, they spring to attention. Fergus grabs a torch and throws it into the brush, revealing several diggers attacking Will. Callahan, in a swift move, quickly shoots the creatures, driving them away, but tragedy strikes when Will is bitten on the neck. With the urgency of the situation and knowing the danger they are in, they make the difficult decision to leave immediately. They come across a native woman, sitting alone by a crackling campfire. They approach cautiously, seeking to avoid further conflict. The woman notices Will's infected wound and, in a serene tone in her native language, warns them that the creatures will come in their direction. Will's condition, fragile and deteriorating, worsens by the moment. The venom in his veins is spreading, making him weak and confused. The woman, with a sad gaze, reveals the bitter truth. The creatures known as the Burying Ones have lived underground for centuries, long before the arrival of the white settlers. In times when buffalo were abundant, they hunted the animals of the plains. However, the threat intensified when the settlers exterminated wildlife, causing these now hungry creatures to turn to human consumption. The venom they inject dilutes the blood and softens the flesh, making it easier to devour. She shares that her own husband was one of the victims and that she had to end his life out of mercy. Furthermore, she explains that the Ute tribe has knowledge of capturing the Burying Ones using infected humans as bait, exposed to sunlight, which is the only thing that can destroy them. With a grave look, she warns that Will not survive. The next day, Fergus and Callahan decide to use the native woman as leverage, hoping to recover captured survivors, possibly even Mary. However, Will, in his mental and physical deterioration, begins to lose his reason, laughing uncontrollably and barely able to stand, delaying the group. That night, they are attacked by one of the creatures. In the midst of the panic, Will, in a moment of desperation, accidentally shoots Callahan in the leg. The native woman insists that they need to keep running, or they'll all end up dead. Finally, they reach the edge of Ute territory, where they are confronted by two men from the tribe. Fergus tries to communicate, but the language barrier creates a palpable tension. Thus, the Utes notice Will's infected wound and realize he could be valuable bait. In a harsh move, they drug him and tie him to a tree in the forest. Fergus, horrified, watches helplessly as the Utes seek to attract the creatures. During the search, he finds a keychain that belonged to Mary, confirming what he feared. She did not survive. Later, Fergus discovers Will tied up and delirious. While trying to free him, Will, in a fit, ends up injuring Fergus in the hand. In an instant, a trap is triggered, and Fergus gets stuck. Amid the struggle for freedom, the creatures emerge, drawn by Will's scent. Wounded but determined, Fergus fights with a sharp stick and uses the Ute's venom, realizing that sunlight is their true weakness. At dawn, the bodies of the creatures are reduced to ashes under the sun's rays. Fergus returns to the settlement only to discover that Henry and his men have arrived. Unfortunately, they executed the captured Ute woman and Callahan without understanding the true threat they faced. The cycle of cruelty and ignorance perpetuates. Devastated, Fergus turns away, his wounded hand unhealed and his heart heavy. He walks aimlessly, passing by a shallow grave, the place where Dobby remains, buried beneath the earth. The Burying Ones conclude with a chilling reminder. The real monsters are not just those who dwell in the depths, but also those who walk upon the surface,